You know that feeling, right? You're part of a project that has everything going for it. A fantastic idea, a great team, maybe even a big budget, but when you launch, it just fizzles out. Nothing happens. Well, let's get into it, because today we're going to tackle the single biggest reason most great ideas fail. It all comes down to the gap between having a brilliant plan and getting people to actually do something about it.
So, picture this. The big day is finally here. Your team has just rolled out a totally game-changing new product. I mean, the features are amazing, the marketing is slick, and the whole office is just buzzing with excitement. You are expecting this thing to absolutely take over the world. And then, crickets. The initial buzz just fades away. The sales numbers aren't climbing, and you're hearing that people like the idea, but they're not clicking. They're not buying. They're not signing up. It's the super frustrating and honestly way too common mystery. So, what on earth went wrong?
All right. To crack this case, we're going to look at a real-world example. Let's talk about a company called Galaxy Sports, because their story is a perfect illustration of a launch that seemed perfect, but hit this exact same wall.
You know, Galaxy Sports did everything by the book. They were already a huge name in high-tech wearables, and they launched this incredible 360-degree camera. I mean, we're talking killer features, waterproof, amazing image stabilization, and it was backed by millions in investment. On paper, this thing was an absolute guaranteed home run.
But 3 months after the launch, the numbers told a totally different story. Just look at this. They were expecting to see solid 30% growth. What they actually got? Half that, just 15%. And look, this wasn't just a small miss. This was a full-blown crisis.
So to figure out what was going on, the team had to look beyond just the sales numbers. They needed to diagnose the real problem. And what they found was that it wasn't about the product. It was all about what was happening or, well, not happening on the customer's journey from just hearing about it to actually doing something.
Okay, so first up, they checked level 1, the initial reaction. And the news here was actually great. The surveys all came back positive. People who saw the product, they liked it. They were impressed. So, nope, the first impression wasn't the problem. All right, next they moved on to level 2, learning. And guess what? Another win. The marketing was doing its job. People totally got the cool new features. They understood the 360-degree camera, the waterproofing, all of it. So it wasn't a lack of information either. And then they got to level 3, action. And this, my friends, is where the whole thing just completely fell apart. Of all the people who liked the product and understood exactly what it did, a staggering 95% did absolutely nothing. Only 5%, just 5, took that next logical step, whether it was downloading the app, visiting the website, or anything.
They had just discovered something called the action gap. And this is the absolute crucial point. It's that invisible wall between your audience knowing what you want them to do and them actually taking the plunge. This, right here, is the single biggest reason most initiatives, we're talking everything from marketing campaigns to internal training programs, fail to deliver any real results. So how in the world do you bridge that gap? Well, you have to get inside people's heads. You have to understand the psychology behind why we do or don't do things. Galaxy Sports realized they weren't just fighting for market share, they were fighting against basic human nature. And they found they needed to tackle 3 key psychological drivers. Think of this as your new 3-point checklist for actually getting people to take action.
First up on that checklist is something called perceived usefulness. See, it's not enough to just list a bunch of cool features. You have to answer the customer's unspoken question, which is always, so what? How is this going to make my life better? They need to see a clear, tangible benefit for them, personally.
So for Galaxy, that meant they stopped just saying waterproof camera and started showing surfers capturing this jaw-dropping footage from inside a barrel wave. Boom. They connected a technical feature to a specific, really desirable outcome. Suddenly, the usefulness wasn't just an idea, it was obvious and super compelling. Okay, the second major barrier is perceived ease of use. A lot of potential customers were just intimidated. A 360-degree camera? That sounds complicated. They worried it would be a huge pain to learn, and that little voice in their head just said, nah, too much effort. So they gave up before they even started.
So what did Galaxy do? They decided to demystify the whole thing. They created these really simple, engaging videos that showed, hey, look how easy it is to get these perfectly stable shots. Or, look, your photos automatically back up to the cloud. You don't even have to think about it. They basically replaced that feeling of intimidation with a feeling of confidence.
And that leads us perfectly into the third, and maybe the most important point on our checklist, self-efficacy. Now, this is a little different from just ease of use. This is about a person's belief in their own ability to succeed. It's that powerful internal voice that finally says, you know what, I can do this. So how do you build that feeling? Galaxy turned to the power of social proof. They started sharing and amplifying success stories from real, everyday users on places like YouTube and Instagram. And when potential customers saw people who looked and sounded just like them creating these incredible videos, it triggered that magical thought, hey, if they can do it, then I can probably do it too.
Okay, so we've got the psychology down, but how do you turn these insights into an actual, repeatable strategy? Right, that's where we need a real blueprint for success.
And the big takeaway here is that it's not about just trying harder or throwing more money at the problem. That's not the answer. To consistently bridge that action gap, you need a system. You need a better blueprint that connects all the dots.
And this is the blueprint. It's called the alignment model, and it's brilliant. Let's just walk through it. You see those 3 columns? You start all the way on the left with the why. What are the core needs? The business needs to fix that 15% growth rate, and you know the audience needs a reason to get over that 95% inaction rate. Then you move to the middle, the what. These are your clear objectives. Okay, we're going to hit 30% growth by driving more app downloads. And then finally, on the right, you've got the how. How are we going to measure this? Through sales revenue and website traffic. What this model does is it forces every single action you take to be directly aligned with a real business need. So once you have this solid strategic blueprint in place, the last step is to turn that plan into actual, real-world impact. This is where we get down to the tactical level.
There's this great old proverb that I think just nails this whole idea. You can't just stand by the water and wish for fish to jump into your arms. That's like wishing for sales to just happen. No, you have to go home and actually weave a net. You need a tool, you need a plan to make it happen.
And that net, well, that's your action plan. It's a really simple but incredibly powerful tool. Here's how it works. You start with one super clear objective. Then, you list out the exact steps you need to take. Then, and this is the really critical part, you break the goal down into its simplest possible unit, like, say, a single customer complaint. And you assign a monetary value to it. How much does one complaint cost us? Finally, you roll out the plan. But the goal isn't just to do it, it's to measure the results and isolate the impact of your specific actions so you can walk back into that boardroom and prove exactly how much value you created.
So as we wrap this up, I really want to leave you with this question to chew on. Think about the most important project you're working on right now. Where is your action gap? Is it a problem with perceived usefulness? Is it about ease of use? Or is it that feeling of self-efficacy? Because figuring out where that gap is, well, that's the very first step to finally weaving the net that's going to bring in the results you've been waiting for.